Welcome back to the channel today, guys. And because I didn't get a chance to tell you yesterday, happy holidays. Now, we got a lot. We have a lot to do today. And I'm kind of mad I didn't get the chance to do it yesterday with you guys to talk about Bleach, because we had some crazy episodes. And I mean crazy episodes. So we got to reveal that a lot of you, I know, did not see coming. But when you think about it, is obvious as hell in hindsight. And it's a huge reveal. So I can't wait to talk about that. But man, we got a lot to go over today with Bleach. We got a lot. I was going to break this up into 2 separate episodes, actually. But I don't have the time. I don't have the time to do 2 separate ones. So I'm going to try my best to do both episodes in this. And judging by how long this is, you'll know how well I did that. I don't want this to be like an hour long. So let's get straight into it. And Chainsaw Man will be coming tomorrow. Just because it's not today doesn't mean you're not getting it. Trust me. We're checking that out too, baby. But let's just get straight into it and talk about the finale of Bleach 1,000 Year Blood War Part 1, because it was great. Our episode begins immediately with the aftermath of our last week's episode, with Isshin kind of getting a light slap on the wrist for what he did. Because technically he went against the rules, but he was able to save lives and stop White, who was the Hollow from our previous episode. So he gets a light slap on the wrist. But Yamamoto says, "That's funny, you only reported that something strange happened to the Hollow. You're sure you didn't leave any important information out of your report, Isshin?" As he tells him, "No, I didn't leave nothing." And as we transition to Masaki and Isshin going about their day-to-days after the incident, we see that they're both living in each other's heads rent-free, you know? They can't get each other out of their mind, both of them. Because with an experience like that, it's a little unforgettable. Because think of it this way. Their whole perception of the other has been completely warped. Their whole lives, they've probably been told that, oh, a Quincy is this way, or a Soul Reaper is that way. So when they finally met each other, their expectations were shattered and blown out the window. So it left a very lasting impression. But as we transition to Masaki coming home later that day, we see that not everyone's exactly thrilled about their meeting, as Ryuken's mother chews her out, saying, "You fought against the Hollow to save a Soul Reaper, didn't you?" Now, she knows this information because Katagiri, the maid, actually sold her out. Like, damn, that's kind of messed up. And Ryuken's mom is furious because, if you remember, the only reason she brought Masaki here, for lack of a better term, was to breed. Because she's a pure-blooded Quincy, and she wants to keep the bloodline completely pure. That is the only reason they have Masaki here. So she could have a kid with Ryuken and continue the bloodline. And she's furious that she went out there and risked herself, risked her blood, you could really say more so, in a fight against the Soul Reaper, who are the Quincy's natural enemies. She's furious about that. But as his mother's chewing her out, we see that she actually passes out. And we realize this situation's a little more dire than we think, as we see Ryuken rush down to her, and we see that she has a hollow's hole in her chest, as he picks her up and actually runs out of the mansion to look for help. Any sort of help in this situation. And as he's escaping with her, he asks himself, why didn't I force her to stop? Why didn't I step between them when the incident was happening? Why didn't I do anything? And as he's thinking that, he gets attacked from behind by a Hollow, actually, only to get saved by the man of the hour, Isshin himself, who is shocked at what is happening to Masaki right now. Now, Isshin tries to rush to her side to help, but Ryuken blames him for what happened, and he's not completely wrong, saying she became like this because she protected you. And as he's standing there blaming Isshin, they get approached by our boy Kisuke Udahara, who says, "Please come with me now. I'll tell you the ways we can save her." And as we get to Kisuke's clinic, the situation does not really get better. As he says, I'm going to be frank with you two. Masaki will never go back to how she was. As he says, I've been studying this condition for about 100 years now. And this condition is called holification. And holification is an uncontrollable technology. We can't make her go back to how she was, but we can save her life. As Kisuke says, in my 100 years of research, I found a way to stop this process. It's to insert into the soul something opposite to holification. Now, this part, I could see people getting confused on. So let me break this down in the simplest terms possible so you guys can understand. First off, the opposite of a Quincy is a Soul Reaper. And the opposite of a Hollow is a human. Now, Masaki, she was infected by the Hollow from the previous episode that Aizen created. Because if you remember, Aizen was creating Hollows who could turn other beings into Hollows. So it infected Masaki. So she is now a Quincy and a Hollow together. She is both. So to go against that, we need the two opposites of what she is now. And since she is a Quincy and a Hollow, what is the complete opposite of that? Well, that's a human and a Soul Reaper. And he even explains that a Quincy could work if this was a holified Soul Reaper, but because she's a human in it, partially, that the Quincy's don't have the antibodies to be able to fight against the holification. Okay, hopefully you guys get where I'm coming from so far, because it's here he shows a special Gigai he made to Isshin. As he says, this thing is made from a human soul. It can envelop the soul that enters it and become a human body. As he tells Isshin, if you enter this body, you will become the Kir, a human and a Hollow together. As he adds, your soul will become a bridge of Reishi that will connect Masaki and the Hollow together. Meaning that he'll have to constantly use his spiritual pressure to balance out her energy so she doesn't holify. As he says, you'll have to do this the rest of her life. But he adds, while you're in this Gigai, not only will you not be a Soul Reaper anymore, you will essentially be a human because you won't even be able to see Hollows anymore. So basically, to summarize it all up, if he gets in this Gigai, he will be able to save her life by being by her side and constantly being the bridge between her Hollow side and her Quincy side. He's going to connect their spiritual pressures before he loses it. So he will be the thing. As long as he's with her, he will be able to stop her from holifying. But he has to stay with her forever and give up everything. But Isshin says, I'll do it. To both of their surprises. As Kisuke asks him, like, you don't have any regrets. You're giving up everything. And he says, of course I do. But who cares? If I let the person who saved me die, the me of tomorrow would hate myself. And it's here that they begin the procedure as we transition inside of Masaki, as we see Isshin quite literally, or metaphorically I should say, becoming the bridge between her and holification. As Isshin tells her, I'm here to protect you. And their souls are linked together. Basically, if he gets away from her for any stretch of time, she will holify. Him losing his spiritual pressure is Urahara saying that we're going to use that to make sure that she never holifies, but you have to be with her for that to happen. Linking their souls together until she dies. This episode could all be summed up, honestly, as just a tragic love story, because that's what it is. And as we see the experiment was a success and her life is saved, we get some scenes of Isshin and Masaki's life together. You know, as they were just starting out. As we see that she was kicked out of the Ishida family because she's not a pure-blooded Quincy anymore, so they don't want her. They kicked her out. And just how these two became inseparable from each other. How they would spend so much time with each other. And now he told her that, yeah, I told her I got kicked out of the Soul Reapers because I made a mistake and they kicked me out of there. But she knew I was lying. But she still accepted me anyway. They were two young kids in love with each other. And it really shows. As he says, Masaki was like the sun. She attracted, illuminated, and controlled everything. And I was happy just to be with her. As he tells Ichigo, and then you were born. And the rest is how you know it. But it's here he starts telling Ichigo some really important information, saying the fact that your hollow was even released, because the hollow was passed down into Ichigo when he was born from Masaki, as he continues and says, means that my spiritual pressure wasn't enough to suppress it anymore. And the link between my Gigai and that hollow was broken, and that's the reason why he has his spiritual pressure back and his Soul Reaper's powers back after all these years. That's why he was able to help with Aizen and all that too, because Ichigo's hollow awakened within him, meaning that he got his powers back that he sealed up to help Masaki in the first place. If that all makes sense. Oh, it's a lot of info. But it's here we get into the most important info of this episode, as he says, among what you went through, there's still something you don't know. 9 years ago on this day, the day your mother died, I'll tell you the real reason she died that day. As he explains that your mother wasn't supposed to die that day. As he says, even though there was a hollow within her, she was still an etched Quincy, basically a pure-blooded Quincy. Her defense, the blood vein, which we saw Ichigo have in our previous episode, which is the Quincy's defense, was exceptionally powerful. Not only was losing unthinkable for her, she should have defeated Grand Fisher without a scratch on her. But her blood vein disappeared because she lost her Quincy powers that day. As it's revealed that Yuha made a selection of Quincy's then. As it's revealed that Yuha took the powers of all the Quincy's he considered impure and used it as his own to revive himself after 900 years. Because of that, Uryu's mother, Katagiri, who was already weak, died. And so did Masaki. As it gets revealed again that Yuha is the one who created the Quincy's. It all started with him. His blood flows within every Quincy. That's what he was saying to Ichigo when they met in the previous episode. That's why he was talking to him like he was, because he knew. And with that information, we see that Ichigo is ready to go back and fix his Zanpakuto after finally learning about himself. And as we transition to episode 13 with Ichigo standing there, proudly about to go, his dad says, "That's great, son. I'm glad you got your fire in you again, but how do you plan to get back?" He doesn't have an answer for that. But as here we see that Mira was lying in wait because Oetsu knew Ichigo would get this done. So she was lying in wait to bring him back. As she does, brings him immediately to the Hoden and throws him back down into the pit. As Oetsu looks straight at Ichigo and says, "You should be able to do this now, Ichigo." And as Ichigo starts walking towards the Asashi down there, they bow. They make way for him and get on a knee and bow to him, showing that he's different than he was before. As he walks up to one, extends his hand and says, "You're the one." And as they lock hands with each other, it's revealed that the Asashi he chose actually has a hollow mask on. Interesting. As Oetsu says, "Come on up. I'll personally reforge your sword for you." Meaning that Ichigo passed. And it turns out all he needed was to find his sense of self and the realization of one important little detail that we're about to get into. As we transition to Oetsu bringing Ichigo to this beautiful room with waterfalls in it everywhere, as he says, "This is why the Hoden was built on a cliff. A Bankai cannot be reforged without all these waters." And it's here we get into the heart of our episode as he tells Ichigo, "This is where you and your Zanpakuto, Zangetsu, must say goodbye." And after telling him that, we get a pretty goofy power-up sequence where all of his assistants, the female Zanpakuto, all come in and help him get the forge going in their own unique ways. Way to kill the mood, ladies. First time I thought I'd ever say that. As Oetsu says, "Let's get started, baby." And they start working on the sword. And as he's forming the sword, he asks Ichigo, like, have you figured it out, Goichi? The reason why the Sasashi turned white the moment it touched you? I bet this is what you're thinking. It reminds me of the hollow within me. That's right. This guy is the hollow within you. I'm saying that this hollow is your Zanpakuto, Ichigo. And it's here we start really breaking this down in case you don't get it. As he says, Aizen created the hollow known as white by layering countless Soul Reaper souls. Oddly enough, it's the same method I used to create an Asashi. The hollow entered your body and melded with your natural Soul Reaper powers you got from your father, becoming your Zanpakuto. As he looks at Ichigo and says, yeah, you already know about the man who's been pretending to be your Zanpakuto within your soul. And as we transition inside of Ichigo's soul and we see Zangetsu, let me ask you guys, who does he look like to you this entire time? As Oetsu says, Ichigo, you know that man. You've seen that man up close with your own eyes quite recently, as the enemy who destroyed the Soul Society. That man is not your Soul Reaper powers. He is your Quincy powers, taking the form of Yuha Bak from 1,000 years ago. Meaning that for this entire time, the entire series, Bak has been pretending to be Ichigo's Zanpakuto. And it's here we start getting pretty emotional, honestly, as we transition to Ichigo thinking, I've been trying not to think about it. That day when I first confronted him, I felt as if I was drawn there. I've been trying not to ask myself why. About why I was able to go straight to him without knowing anything. Or why I thought he was the most important enemy. And finally, why he reminded me of someone I know. As Ichigo, heartbroken, asks him, what's going on, Zangetsu? But he tells him, it's just as you heard. Also, I am not Zangetsu. As the world starts shattering around them, and Yawash starts telling him that I am the source of the Quincy power within you. I am Yawash, aka Yuha, yet I am not. But Ichigo's heartbroken and says, are you my enemy or an ally? Was everything you said to me a lie? As he tells him, I'm not your enemy or an ally, but there were no lies in the words I told to you, except for the name I told you. As he explains that, Ichigo, I know you've seen it. Whenever I taught you how to use your Zanpakuto, I always had help from the hollow. Whenever you couldn't handle your Zanpakuto's power, when you were truly in danger of losing your life, the one who saved your life wasn't me. It was the hollow. I didn't want you to become a Soul Reaper. That's why I suppressed your true power, which had not fully matured, and became the center of your power personally. Meaning that he was hiding Ichigo's real power while letting him use his in place of it. As he says, I wish to keep you far from danger and from conflict. If you became a Soul Reaper, you would be dragged into battle whether you wanted to or not. You would get hurt. You would suffer. And eventually, I would have to kill you with my own hands. As Yuha draws his Quincy sword out. And he continues and says, I couldn't let you become a Soul Reaper. If you did, I would have to kill you. That's what I thought. However, you chose that path anyway. You were given an opportunity and you honed your strength. You suffered, you got hurt, yet still continued to travel down the path of your own free will. As I watched you, I could almost hear my heart wavering. Eventually, rather than trying to keep you away, my heart leaned towards supporting your decision. And now I stand here, feeling the joy of stepping away from you. Ichigo, you've become strong. I've been able to see your growth right by your side. Nothing could make me happier. as Zangetsu, aka Bach, disappears forever. But it's here we see that his sword is still there, as he says, Ichigo, what you've been using is merely a fragment of your power that I couldn't suppress. You can now fight with your own power. That is your true Zanpakuto. That is Zangetsu. And as Ichigo's about to come out of his own world, he says, Zangetsu, I don't care who you are. You might try to deny it, but you and him are both Zangetsu to me. As we come back to the real time, as he plunges his hand into the fire, grabs the sword, and literally pours his very soul into it. As Oetsu tells him, now pull it out, Goichi. That's your Zanpakuto. And when he does, he pulls the sword out of the fire. He eviscerates the entire surroundings. He evaporates the sea that they are surrounded by. As he says, well, Ichigo, think you can get along with those Zangetsu? As we see that Ichigo has 2 Zanpakuto. As Ichigo says, Zangetsu, I won't ask you to lend me your strength anymore. I won't tell you to stay out of my way either. I'll fight on my own. As we see the soul of both Zangetsus are represented in these dual blades. As Ichigo says, thank you, Zangetsu. And our episode ends with that. And boy, a lot of info. I really wanted to keep this video not too long, but it's pretty long. So I appreciate you guys bearing with me. There's a lot to go over. Now, I've been wanting to talk about this Zangetsu stuff for a really long time. I really have. I was wondering if people would notice that. I don't do this that often, but I was watching other people's reviews, actually, while we were going through this arc, and I kept thinking to myself, like, is anyone gonna notice? Is anyone gonna mention it? Not a single person I saw mentioned it, besides people that have read the manga and already know about it, you know? Like, no casuals put 2 and 2 together, that they look identical. And I can't wait to go and watch reviews this episode. I just want to see people's shocked face, because, yeah, the entire time, the person that was closest to him the whole time was really Bach. Just think about that. We haven't even actually seen Ichigo's real power. He's literally been using Bach's power the whole time, with a little sprinkle of his own. And that his real Zanpakuto the whole time was the hollow that he himself vilified. It's kind of cool, honestly. And Ichigo is on a completely different level now. It's gonna be crazy to see next season, which is July. Why is it July? It's so far away, dude. It's literally, we gotta wait a whole nother season. We gotta wait 2 seasons, bro, for our next installment. They're really gonna drag this out, like, damn. But it's gonna be incredible. I promise you guys that now. So let me know what you thought of this pretty long episode in the comments down below, because I really want to hear it. And yeah, guys, things are crazy. Crazy episode. Great conclusion to our first half. And just Bleach, yet again, just being amazing. So until next time, guys, hope you have a great day, week, month, and year. And I'll see you guys when part 2 drops. Deuces.